Welcome, everybody. My name is Mike Dovefish. I'm Executive Director of Nutrition Capital Network, and we thank you all for joining us for our first LinkedIn Live 2025 State of Investment and Innovation. Nutrition Capital Network is a platform for companies raising capital in health and nutrition. We do this through our events and through our data. Nutrition Capital Network is part of Informa's health and nutrition vertical. We have two standalone events in New York and San Francisco, and then we also hold events at Supply Side West and at Natural Products Expo West. Our next event coming up is April 30th in New York, and wanted to show a slide of companies that have come through NCN. And we have found that approximately 44% of them have either directly or indirectly raised capital as a result of participating in our meetings. Some of these companies our guest has invested in. So I'd like to welcome Jim Calley.
Hey, Mike, it's great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Jim, can you say a few words about your firm?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jim Calley. I am a partner in an early stage venture firm called NCN Nutrition Investment Partners. Our name is pretty simple. It tells you what we do. We invest in early stage, primarily ingredients and food tech that are focused on superior nutrition. So really looking to have a disruptive impact on how people eat by helping them eat better. We focus largely on ingredients and food tech. And part of the reason there is that if you think about the number of calories that someone will consume, a lot of it is through either prepared food, packaged food, things you buy in supermarkets. And by working in the ingredient space, be it in food or in supplements, we can impact a large number, a vast percentage of those calories. So that, is good for both the consumer and also good on a societal scale. We can actually improve nutrition. As Mike said, we have invested in, several NCN companies. In fact, our last two investments that have been within the last 6 months were both NCN companies. So we're proud members of the network and have found it very productive.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And it's been great that you've been part of NCN and you're a real advocate of what we're doing. And I think some of these companies on this slide you invested in, I believe, and I think one of them that you just alluded to was Infused Nutrition. Is that right?
Yeah, our two most recent investments, I can see 3 investments on there. But Infused Nutrition we invested in last year in fourth quarter. And Infused is a good example of what we look for in companies and also where we see the state of investment today, where Infused is a technology that allows non-soluble ingredients to be put into solution at very high concentrations, like 10 to 30%. So you can picture ingredients like fish oils, omega-3s, creatine, now being able to put in beverages, in gummies, in spray dried format that can then be put into ready to mix powders. So you can see the vast number of forms that could impact. So we're improving nutrition through multiple brands, multiple forms. And at the same time, we can expand markets, but because now you're having an ingredient that could be available in alternative formats and create new occasions. So that's sort of what we look at when we look at investments.
And Jim, just hearing you talk about that, I think it seems to me that you have a pretty deep background in this industry. So I don't know if you wanted to say a few words about what you
Mike,
did,
I guess that's
your
a
life
polite
prior.
way of saying I'm kind of old, so I've been around for a while. Yeah. So both my partner Andrew and I, Andrew Toll, we each have about 30 years plus in CPG, primarily in the food business. Myself, I started my career with a company called the Warner Lambert Company, which was in pharma and healthcare, and they had a confection division which sold things like Trident gum and Dentyne. And from there, I kind of progressed through a series of acquisitions. I spent about 10 years with Cadbury, where I led their global gum and candy business. Moved on to Kraft and Mondelez after they acquired Cadbury, And then I led the global snacks category team at Kellogg's, which I left in 2019, and we started our firm in 2020.
Excellent. So you're the person to go find at our events when investors or companies have questions, and you have a whole history of working with these types of companies, both as an
Yeah,
operator and investor.
yeah, I think a little bit about our firm and the way we try and approach it. We're both operators by nature, and in being so, I think we can see the business through our founders' eyes and seek to find solutions through our experiences and our network. At the same time, we are investors, so we take a financial, position around things, and that's another point of view. And since we both came from large companies, we do understand what is going on, in the eyes of, say, a CVC, corporate venture capital, or potentially someone looking at an exit. So we find ourselves positioned at that center point, and it's, been quite useful.
Excellent. Well, before we talk about the themes for the year, what we're forecasting and looking at, just wanted to take a look at some of these current transactions that have happened, and some of the categories they are in touches on the broader themes. But these are some of the recent deals that have happened, sort of noteworthy deals. The first one, obviously, Lesser Evil was acquired for 750 million. Healthy snacks. We haven't seen a lot in healthy snacks lately, so this one, along with Simple Mills, could be telling that maybe there's going to be an opening here for healthy snacks startups and funding to start coming back around. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. If this, I don't think you invested in this company though, did you?
No, we did not, and which at 750 million exits, great. And I think it'll work well for everyone. I think the interesting thing about snacks is, you know, I could remember when it was first in the snacking business, you said the word snacks, and people thought, oh, it's only about indulgence or about something I shouldn't be doing. Snacking's a bad thing. And I think this really shows that we've gone from the world of having people eat, 2 or 3 square meals a day, and you have a snack or two for indulgence, to really embody the idea of you're grazing or eating through the day, and it's fuel. It's not just an indulgent thing. And there's some clear areas there that are potentials for companies. Traditional indulgence will still be around. There's a great space, as this is, clearly says, about the better for you and people cleaning up their label with better ingredients. And then on the farther extreme, there's true fuel, people powering through their day by getting protein or fiber through snacks. And, people who find a way to differentiate themselves in each of those segments will be the, winners. There's a lot of Me Too. And I think maybe some of the slowdown in activity and snacking was because of an over proliferation of things that frankly just were not differentiated. And that's something I think we'll probably talk more as we go through this session.
Good. Okay. Great. Next one is Biome. Biome Technologies, also an NCN alumni. Again, not sure if you invested in them, and even if you were, you might not be able to tell us if you were, but it's a microbiome play. Don't know if you have any thoughts on this one.
Yeah, no, we did not invest in them. We know of people who did, though. So it's a very nice company. We have invested in a novel probiotic. It's called Clostrobio, which is also an NCN company. And we think the whole biotics or microbiome play is just just at the start of a real good growth phase. Maybe specifically there, if you think about, from a consumer basis, people know a lot more about gut health today than they did 5 years ago, and they know, some pretty deep science around it too. The science has been expanding about how, you can, work against things like IBS, or knowledge around the whole gut-brain axis and immunity. There's a lot of new discovery being made, and then you find technology and infrastructure enabling startups to do things that only big, perhaps pharma companies, could have done before. So this space is truly just at a beginning, I think.
Yeah, and we saw companies come through raising capital maybe, gosh, 15 years ago, and so it was those ones were way ahead of their time. And one of those companies that that touches on this area is a company, a predecessor to Olipop, the prebiotic beverage company, and they had a company before that that presented at an NCN event, and it was just a little bit before their time, so they were ahead of their time, and then the market caught up, and obviously we could see down below healthier sodas, and that's part of it. It's not all part of the whole category of healthier sodas, gut health, but I think there's still a lot happening there in healthier beverage, and just want to then pop up above that. AI is everywhere, and we've seen that in food distribution and food systems. I think some of these companies, they started before AI, what's happening with AI, but they've been implementing AI technologies, such as Grub Market, Chef, and Starday. And last that I recently noted was By Heart, an infant nutrition company, raised 75 million. We've seen other companies in this space, such as Bobby and Once Upon a Farm, also raising capital and doing quite well.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, Mike, I just saw that there was a comment in the questions coming in around the healthy snacks, and is that a stepping stone to food as medicine? I think we'll probably get into that a little bit more later, but clearly, healthy snacks, maybe in a broad sense, has gone from a snack as something you don't eat to something that helps get you through the day. And then the next step would be, if you're truly looking at food as medicine or food as health, a science-based, performance-based food in that area would be the logical next step. And that is needed and is growing. We shouldn't confuse that with the world's just going to stop eating Oreos in total. Both will exist, and I think, like anything, both in balance work well.
So it's a way of just not, oh, I need some calories to get me through the day. It's, oh, I need something a little bit more functional to get me through the day, but then also maybe to help with a post-work pre-workout or something.
Yeah, well, I
Something
mean,
where
you can see it working on being functional, of having something that is a pre-workout that is actually enjoyable versus having to sort of gag down a shake or something like that. Equally so, look, people have a sweet tooth, and people enjoy having something sweet and having options that are perhaps a little bit more on the indulgent side, but are good for your metabolic health. They may not spike blood glucose levels, and that's a way for someone who truly would like to make a change in lifestyle to keep a little bit of those treats and indulgence during the day, but not getting to trouble with their pre-diabetes or something like that. There is clearly science in that area, and there's going to be a lot of discovery, and I think there's a positive tailwind for people in that area. The one caution is, though, we need to follow the science and ensure we're doing good for people.
agreed. And these are all part of the long-term health and wellness, health and nutrition. I don't want to say trends. They're really sort of here to stay. But we did see a little bit of a bubble and deflating of that bubble in the last few years. I have this chart up from our outlook, and it was an outlook report. This was based on numbers that we track, and these are the number of transactions per category in financing. So if there was an organic hydration company that raised capital, that counts as one transaction. So just as an example. So you can see 2022 was a peak, interest rates went up, the investment climate went pretty quiet, and 2023 really saw a drop off. And then in 2022, 2024, a little bit more of a drop off. but it seems to be declining at a smaller rate. So we are thinking we're bottoming, and I I I believe we are. I was probably a little bit more optimistic. I would say end of last year. I think recently with what's been happening, I think there might be a little bit more turbulence ahead, but we'll see what happens going forward. So here are some themes that we pulled out from our report. That chart that you saw was part of that report, uh, and we also talked about themes, what we think are going to be important themes in health and nutrition this year and going forward. So we might not get to all of these, but I think there are some key ones in here, and some of what we've already talked about flows into that. In particular, GLP-1. Um, a lot to talk about here. We could probably spend an hour on this, but GLP-1 and how do you dissect GLP-1 and your thesis around how you're investing, how you're looking at companies? I mean, you could take a product pre-GL pre-starting of GLP-1. You could take it as you're coming off GLP-1. You could be taking a natural product that could be that could replicate an actual GLP-1. So how do you dissect it all first before you then look at companies?
Yeah, I think maybe before we even dive specifically into the GLP-1 of if you think about the the area of weight management has been around for a long time. You know, there are programs that are doing it, there are behavioral things, there were supplements, there were, you know, some other OTC medications that are probably no longer or are no longer on the market for good reasons. So this, you know, there was an underlying need that has existed for a while. And the GLP-1 science has caught up and has matched that need. And that's why you kind of see this, you know, very strong boom-like thing. It's not surprising. And I think for a lot of people, it could be a more of a almost a cosmetic thing. And for some, it can truly be life-changing where you could make dramatic changes in weight and in health because of that. So really some positive things, you know, happening there. The way we sort of dissect it is almost in say three buckets, and I think we have a stronger focus on one of those buckets or two of them really. One of them is there's a lot of activity in, are you the natural GLP-1 alternative? Have you found bioactives that can activate like, you know, a pharmaceutical GLP-1? And there's a lot of activity there. And I think that's a case where, you know, you do have to follow the science. Does it work? Does it not work? Are there other side effects? And there's a lot of activity there. And the um, I think the key thing is, you know, finding things that would be effective. And for our sake, we're not, from our perspective, we're less expertise in that area. We're looking at it, but have not dedicated a ton of time in can we find the next, you know, natural GLP-1. We see a lot of activity and, you know, fits our interests as investors clearly in what we would think of adjuncts to a GLP-1 regimen. And the adjuncts probably fall into two areas. One of them is around foods or diet that you should be considering when you're on a GLP-1. So if you're eating less, you need to make every bite count in terms of nutrition. And, you know, the risk of loss of bone density or not getting certain nutrients in your system because of just eating less, you know, highlights what should you be eating and what you feel comfortable eating. So we've invested in some protein plays, we've invested in sweeteners, and we think they'll have a great play in areas like that. The other bit is, you know, there are some side effects and there are remedies or I shouldn't say remedies, sorry. There are products that could help manage those side effects perhaps. And we think that's another, you know, strong one that it is an adjunct. And those are two buckets that we're deeply looking at, both within our current portfolio and future. And the last one is an off-ramp. You know, are people going to be on a GLP-1 forever, or they find a way to titrate off? And that too is a very valid piece. And knowing, you know, who the target is, what the performance criteria is for each will help, you know, differentiate, I think, winners versus losers. I think my one big voice of encouragement for us as an industry is, let's follow the facts here a little bit, follow the science. And, if you go back, what, 4 or 5 years, everyone slapped the word, CBD on a label and had some crazy claims against it. And, you know, the true winners sometimes were diluted because of people who were, trying to make a fast and loose claim. And we wouldn't want bad science to kind of diminish this opportunity of really helping people manage their weight and, manage their metabolic health.
Got it. When you're looking at companies, are they have that are addressing what's happening with GLP-1s? Have they been around for a while and they just happen to fit into how you're breaking things out, or are these fairly new companies that just happen to hit all the marks?
I mean, I can think of people we've done diligence on in the area of being nature's GLP-1. It ranges from, I kind of remember one company that probably had, 6, 7 years of time, and much of it funded by some government grants. It was outside the US. Um, and conversely, there are some people now to see this is great, and I'm hunting for bioactives, and the investment pitch is more on we have a better way of finding bioactives, trust us kind of thing. And so it's a big range that way. Um, I guess the follow on is, I think the one that's most interesting is, and this may, swerve a little bit into the food as medicine, but there are things that are important for someone on a GLP-1 diet. Like, are you getting enough nutrients? Are you getting enough protein? And there are companies that have been around for a while, or maybe some more recent ones that was their core area, delivering a better protein or delivering nutrients in a more convenient format. And now the GLP-1 adjunct is just can be another expression of their products. And that's a great place for startups in those areas to hunt, both on a branded and on an ingredient side.
Got it. Thanks. Thank you for all that. Uh, we have about 7 minutes left, so I want to make sure we cover a few other investment themes for the year. One of which is Maha Badness, and I realize that maybe a lot of people on this that are listening to this might not know that what Maha is, and it's Make America Healthy Again. Uh, this could be sort of deemed as maybe a little bit controversial, but I think the point being here is um, the push for more natural solutions as opposed to pharma. So not necessarily a bad thing. So it's bringing up different things for people, or natural products and supplements, making that more of a putting that more at the forefront. So maybe people are thinking about um, taking their health more into their own hands. And I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, generally, this is going to be a positive tailwind, I think, for the industry, where things that will accelerate, like natural colors, for example. Um, Things, will accelerate in, people taking uh, health into their own hands, and the food as medicine idea can let's eat better instead of taking a pharmaceutical. That's great. I think that's a positive tailwind. Um, I think there is still the need to follow the facts, and the idea of we're going to go back to frying everything in beef tallow. We know that leads to some cardiovascular issues. So maybe that's not the Make America Healthy Again solution. But generally, it's a positive tailwind. We see it as an opportunity, and yeah, we're encouraged by that.
Good. Uh, let's talk about maybe one more area, and then there's a question I'd like to pose for you. Women's health. It's another area. It's not on here. We've talked about women's health in maybe last year's outlook, but again, we would probably put it here as well. What do you think about women's health?
Yeah, I mean, we're firm believers in life stage health. So women's health has been underserved. There's clearly gaps in serving different life stages for women super. And I think there's a lot of interesting work being done there. Equally so, more broadly, the area of aging, so you're looking at someone who's 64, would like to stay healthy, and my knees hurt a lot sometimes if I run. So, there's things that you want to achieve stage wise that are important. And equally so, childhood development and early stage childhood and nutrition, as you've hit earlier. There's lots of things in each life stage, and I think being more focused in each can lead to better solutions and innovation.
Life stages. I like that. A question I'd like to ask, and we talked a little bit as food is medicine. So I think the question here really is, what are the barriers for investment in this space? And I think maybe what the person's asking is, investors are looking at food as medicine, but then if you're seeing companies that are touted as food as medicine, what are you looking
Yeah,
for
I
if they're
mean,
saying their food is medicine?
the general areas we look at are, better fats, better proteins, better sweeteners, things around gut health, metabolic health, and cleaning up labels, a clean label view. And I think while that's very broad, the things we look at are, will this actually make a difference? Or is it just sort of like a smokescreen and trying to, you know, ride a tailwind? So is there a demonstrable difference between what's available today and can it make an impact on someone's nutrition and health? The second one is it available or can it facilitate being available in a format that's convenient for people? If it's hard for people to incorporate this in their diet, they're not going to. So, making products that are, affordable, they run on normal production lines, they're in formats that fit in with someone's lifestyle. Those are things that bring it from like the science to actually everyday life, and we would screen that way. Following the science, though, is really the key thing. We do spend a lot of time on trying to understand preclinical and clinical results and how that's incorporated into claims of consumer products.
Okay, we have a few more questions. We might just have time for one more, and then I wanted to get your take. Well, let's do this. What's your take right now on what's happening? And I don't with tariffs, which then ultimately has an effect on the markets. Does that then affect a delay of the recovery of investors wanting to jump in and make investments?
Um, I'll say, three quick bullet points. One is whenever there's turbulence, investors will tend to keep their hands in their pocket, and sometimes that slows funding. We've seen that when we've tried to raise money before, and I think for startups, you may see that with, angel investors and high net worth, investors. The second one is, every startup should be expected to have the answer, are you affected by tariffs? What's your contingency plan? What are you going to do? Good founders are thinking ahead of that and making it work, you know. And I think some of them are from an investor's, basis, some people who are just inherently linked to importing product because frankly, it's not grown in the US. So if you took the tea industry, that's one that, yeah, it's going to be exposed. I'm assuming that's covered by tariffs, and we don't have a big domestic tea industry. So things like that you need to plan on, and founders need to think about a way of either pricing or adding value to their products that could overcome the issues.
Yeah, we actually saw a tea company present last spring, and they grow their tea in Florida. So it's a
Well,
real,
that's the count.
you know,
That I bet you they were getting a lot of interest versus everything coming from, say China or Sri Lanka or wherever.
yeah. I think we're right at 30 minutes here. So I want to make an announcement again, not so much an announcement, but a date coming up, April 30th, our New York investor meeting. I hope all of you can attend. And I wanted to thank Jim. Thank you so much for all that you do with NCN, with all your investments in this industry. It helps grow it. And I don't know if you have any last parting words.
No, I guess one of the beauties of NCN that it is a network, a community of people. So um honestly, I can't see who's on the call, but if anyone, wants to connect, please reach out on LinkedIn, and we're always happy to talk, both looking at fellow like-minded investors and great founders with great ideas.
Right. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. This will be on demand. And feel free to reach out to myself or Jim, and we'll follow up with you if you have any questions. And have a great day.
Cheers, guys.